I think one thing that really stands out to me about like this whole digital nomad, slow travel lifestyle is that everyone who's here has made a choice in life to be here.
Yeah.
You know, everyone's like kind of turned their life around and made a decision. I'm going to go here and I'm going to be happy. I'm going to live this lifestyle that I desire.
Welcome to the Nomadic Abundance Podcast, slow travel tips and inspiration for living an abundant life abroad.
We're Joel and Michelle, the Wandering Hartz, and we've been traveling full-time since 2019.
So we're actually on a mission to help nomads, early retirees, maybe even you listening or watching this, to help incorporate slow travel or even full-time travel into your life, whether it be through retirement or your work life as well, so you can have a more abundant lifestyle.
For more information, be sure to check out the show notes where you'll find links to everything we discuss in this episode.
And also we have more full-length episodes of Nomadic Abundance Podcast, as well as bonus episodes over at nomadicabundance.com.
In this episode, we're joined by our friends Josefine and Dominik, who are also travel bloggers and own redwhiteadventures.com.
So we sat down with them and had a really great conversation where we discussed everything from the how and why they decided to become digital nomads, as well as some of their journey through like doing fast travel and then their transition into slow travel, as well as some of those challenges too.
Yeah, they also offer some great advice about incorporating slow travel into your lifestyle and also some advice about becoming nomads. So I think this will be a good episode and make sure you stick around. Now on with the show.
And what's interesting is that we're actually filming this in Bansko, Bulgaria, which is where we all met each other almost a year ago to the day.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was the first time last year. Yeah, it was.
Yeah. At the Nomad Fest and then again in
Brno,
yeah,
that's right, in Brno,
yeah.
Traverse.
I was gonna say, I feel like the last memory I have is when we were all dancing on the dance floor in Brno at the last night at the travel conference. Yeah.
It was a very good ending to that travel conference.
Yeah. Yeah. With some not so good endings than when we got to Prague.
Oh yes, that would be.
Oh no.
From the big party.
Spill the beans.
Oh yeah, so we ended up catching COVID.
Oh, okay.
And yeah, it's been like
And you locked
Right,
up on
we
your
were
anniversary,
supposed to meet up with you guys, and then it didn't end up happening.
exactly.
Yeah, that rings a bell now.
We ended up
Yes.
locked in our apartment.
You
for
spent
our
quarantine on your anniversary?
Yep.
Yeah.
Quarantine anniversary for.
For like 10 days in Prague.
Oh no.
Yeah, that
Yeah.
sucks.
So,
Yeah.
but anyways,
But-
why don't you guys introduce yourselves a little bit here, and tell us a little bit about what you guys did prior to becoming digital nomads.
Yeah. So we're Dom and Joe, and we've been traveling for 7 years now.
Yeah, just over 7 years.
Just over 7 years. We met while we were backpacking in Australia back in 2016, and it was both of our first international trips, I think, or at least like the bigger trips on our own.
Okay.
And we met. I think you've been traveling for 2 months, and I've been traveling for 2 weeks.
Oh.
And yeah, and then we met in a hostel room, and have more or less been traveling since then. So I was straight out of high school at the time, actually.
Okay.
Okay.
In Denmark, we finished high school a little bit later than you guys do in the US.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
And yeah, you just finished your degree, right?
Yeah, I finished school, and then the economy kind of like crashed a little bit, and then I was like, I had a friend who was actually in Australia at the time. I was like, oh, this seems interesting. And then so I got the work holiday visa, and then ended up in Australia. And we met in Australia, and then for the first kind of few years we were hopping between different countries because we
Yeah.
could never live anywhere together.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
explain a little bit. Dom, you're from Canada?
yeah, exactly. Yeah,
Okay.
from Alberta, and Joe's from
Denmark.
From
Mhm.
Denmark.
Yeah.
Okay.
So for the first many years, we had kind of a visa situation, right? Dom being from Canada, me being from Denmark.
Yeah.
Most countries we could only spend 90 days together. So yeah, we were in Australia for about 6 months together. Then we did long distance where he went back to Canada. I was in Denmark. Then we moved to New Zealand. Then we both moved to Denmark for a year. And then Dom's visa expired. So he moved to Prague.
Mhm.
And then at that time, I had just started university and I decided to drop out, move to Prague. And
from there, that's kind of where
from
the
there
digital nomad life started.
Yeah.
So the first few years was more this unconventional kind of lifestyle, and then
working holiday visas and trying to just make a life work together.
Right.
And then
Okay.
over time, we kind of transitioned now into
Yeah.
this slow madding, slow travel kind of lifestyle.
Yeah.
Okay. So you got the travel bug, and then you guys decided to
Basically.
yeah. So were you doing
Pursue
a
it
lot more
together.
like fast travel back then, or
Well, no, because we were on working holiday visa, so actually we were just living kind of like a regular life in a
Okay.
few different countries. So in Australia, Dom worked at a warehouse. I worked at a cafe down by the Opera House in Sydney, and we just had like a regular 9 to 5 kind of lifestyle.
okay?
Okay.
And then we did the same thing in New Zealand, where that was more like a backpacker job,
Mm-hmm.
where we lived at a lodge
Okay.
and like stayed on site, worked there,
Mhm.
10 days on, 4 days off.
Okay.
And then it wasn't until we moved to Denmark and tried to settle, which didn't work out. That's when I started working remotely, and we kind of started dipping into this lifestyle. Yeah. So
Okay.
it's been like a long journey.
Yeah.
And yeah, we were traveling for quite a few years before we became nomads.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
So what was there like a moment that you decided, like after doing the cafe thing, and you said you're doing was the remote work? Was that what helped spurred the idea to like just go full time and do it?
Yeah, so I think you wanted to go home for the summer, and I wanted to come with him. This was while we lived in Denmark, and I was a student at the time and didn't have a lot of money, and I knew I needed to find
Flight tickets are not cheap.
no. And cost of living in Canada is kind of high too, right? So I knew I had to
Right.
have some sort of income to make it happen. So that's kind of when I started researching remote jobs.
Okay.
And I started as a VA in 2018, I
Okay.
think. Yeah,
Mhm.
5 years ago.
Okay.
And then took my business took it full time within 6 months. And that's once I was full time with that, I decided to drop out of university and then move to Prague, because while I was building up my business, his visa in Denmark expired and he had to move out.
Okay.
So that's
But
kind of
Joe's
like the
story's
timeline.
yeah, but it's pretty cool that she actually did get her first job through a Facebook group. So it is
Yeah.
possible.
Oh wow.
You know, a lot of people are searching on Facebook groups for jobs and, like never get lucky. But I think, there's definitely opportunities out there. And
Yeah.
you landed your first client, you were good at what you did. And from there it was just kind of word of mouth. And then she got more and more clients that way.
Yeah.
And then turned
Just applied through a DM and
Yeah. And basically you ended up working full time after that.
Yeah. Yeah, I think
So-
these days it might be more on like LinkedIn or something
Mhm.
than on Facebook.
Right.
But yeah, you can definitely find remote jobs just like through social media and
Mm-hmm.
yeah.
Right on. And so at this point, had you guys already like accumulated a bunch of things, or had like leases or anything like?
Yeah, I think
Apartments?
we didn't have too much.
Yeah, it was at the time when we were in Prague, and we rented out an apartment, but because we'd been traveling prior to that, I feel like we never owned too many things. And then I feel like we've always been a little minimalistic, and
Yeah.
we've always kind of been more experiences over things and stuff. So
Yeah. And
I
we were
think it was-
kind of young when we started too. So
Yeah.
I only had the stuff I had at my parents' house.
Okay.
And then we moved into an apartment where we
okay.
shared it with 2 other people. So it's
Okay.
the 4 of us. So we had a room with like a bed and a
Right.
table and a few things that we could just sell.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
So I wouldn't say it was really a big transition, because we were already living abroad in a country where it was just like stable, and then we went into then traveling a bit more and moving from place to place. So
Yeah.
it wasn't like a huge transition. I think the biggest thing was maybe just like it ended up being remote work after we're in Prague. I was teaching out of school and stuff, and Joe was doing her work, and then
Yeah.
it ended up being more remote work after that. So I think that was kind of the big.
Yeah, I think for
transition.
us, like the biggest challenges have been to find visas and figure out where we could live and stuff. Dom has dual citizenship now with Czech Republic because that's where his parents are from.
But which
for-
wasn't the case for the first like 3-4 years of our
4 yeah.
relationship. So that
Oh,
opened up a lot of
interesting.
doors
Yeah.
and made life a lot easier after
So
Okay.
for
that.
4 years, it
Right.
was like our challenges were just how can we be together? Which countries can we be in? And how can we make an income while we do that? So
Right.
yeah, I think it was visas and work were like
The-
our biggest challenges.
Okay.
Okay.
Well, it helps out a lot if you're already minimalist.
Yeah.
yeah, that's
You know,
Right.
it's a easier like jump than I
Yeah.
feel like than into the whole nomading, because we did not have that.
Yeah,
that
you had a
was
full
definitely
house,
not.
We
our-
had like a maybe
Yeah.
semi-hoarder situation
Okay.
right here.
Sure. Yeah, I was definitely a borderline hoarder.
Yeah.
I had a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
Which
Yeah.
I realized once we started trying to sell everything,
Mm.
just realized just how much stuff we had.
Yeah.
Like I learned how to squirrel everything away into like every cubby in my office was like completely like packed full of stuff. And so we decided that was a big emphasis when we were once we made the decision and we started going through all of those things. I think it was like pretty easy to like, oh, definitely have to stop this. I'm glad we're doing this now instead of later on.
Like 15 years.
No, but I think especially once you're like living this lifestyle for a bit, it's cool to realize like you really don't need that much stuff, you know, and you go places and it's like, I don't need 3 luggages. I can put everything in one in a backpack.
I mean, to be honest, I was a bit of a hoarder too, but I only had so much room I could hoard on, right? Because I was living with my parents before we went traveling. But I have like birthday cards from when I was like 5 and stuff.
Yeah, but it's hard. A lot of things come back nostalgia and stuff.
But I think going backpacking, you know, when I left, I kind of expected to just go back. And so, well, I guess I did, but like I was gone for almost 6 months. I realized there's a lot of the stuff I didn't miss. So I feel like that was an easy way to transition out of it, instead of like if you're just in your house and you're trying to sell everything, but you haven't like been apart from it or whatever. Like you think you need this in your life, but then if you go travel and you realize, oh, I didn't miss any of this, it's easier to get rid of some of it, I think.
I wholly agree. I think that was a big thing for us too. We realized just how much stuff you don't need or you don't use. Like before we did our whole thing and before we sold our house and everything, I was doing a lot more travel on my own just with my work because I was doing producing stuff. And so it wasn't for long periods of time, but I would be away for, you know, a week or 2 weeks for work. And I started realizing like my suitcase started getting smaller and smaller because I started realizing I've taken all these things that I'm not using. And I mean, even our first 2 years of traveling, we were mostly traveling in the States. So we started with, of course, the biggest suitcases we could have, and we were flying a lot of Southwest Airlines in the States, so you get like the free check luggage.
That was like the opposite of Ryanair.
Exactly, the opposite of Ryanair. And so we were just like taking everything with us, and
it was so bad. We had so much stuff.
Yeah, like when Puerto Rico, I had like my my scuba, my wetsuit, and flippers, and everything. You know, all stuff I could have easily just rented. You know, when I got there. But
I think that's the thing, that like the 3 of us being from North America, we just have so much room and space everywhere. So you know, you just like accumulate all this stuff, and then you're, say where we are now in Bansko, and you're in a little 1-bedroom apartment, and you're like, I don't need that much stuff. So
yeah.
No, it's so true.
It's definitely a benefit, I feel.
So then transitioning into kind of like slow travel then for you guys, what was your first then travel destination that was like, you know, intentionally like slow travel?
That's a good question, actually, because I feel like our first slow travel destination is different than our first nomad destination.
But our first kind of like nomad experience travel would have been Croatia, and that was an interesting experience.
That was very fast paced.
We were just new to this. We didn't know a whole lot. We didn't know about like digital nomad communities.
We only had backpacking experience. So we booked a full month in Croatia, 3 to 4 days in each location. And then just like 2-3 hour bus ride, if not longer.
And I still remember like a few experiences where we got off a bus on the side of the highway, and it was like an 1.5 hour walk to this Airbnb in the middle of nowhere. And I was like teaching English at the time. Jo was doing her work.
And we didn't always have good Wi-Fi. And
it was like, it was exhausting. And by the end of it, I was like, there was a few fun memories, but it was exhausting. I'm like, this is supposed to be fun. And like, I wouldn't say I had the most, like.
We didn't meet anyone.
Yeah, we didn't meet anyone, you know.
Like
and it was just like,
oh no.
Yeah.
And we were just like in remote places, and they were beautiful. Croatia's beautiful. But we just, it was, I wish the things we knew now we could have like done back then, because it would have made the trip a whole lot easier. Maybe just stay in one place for most of the trip, or 2 places, right? Like minimum 2 weeks in a place, I think would have been good. Again, maybe look for where communities are and stuff, because that also I think like helps a lot. Especially for us, we're quite social, so
we kind of like having easy access to other nomads.
Absolutely. I feel like when we were traveling our first 2 years and back in the States, we didn't have as much of that. You know, we were just kind of going places,
Yeah.
And I mean, whether it be like in Florida or something like that, like
Mhm.
beach town, you could meet some locals, but they weren't other like nomads,
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that made it a little bit
Yeah.
harder to connect with
Yeah.
people.
Yeah. And sometimes it's
Mm-hmm.
helpful traveling to places where you don't have to not necessarily explain yourself, but explain your lifestyle. Like people just get it.
Right.
You know, they want to know who you are, where you're from, and what you do for work. But other than that, it's just like, you just connect and you want to do fun things together. You don't have to constantly explain like, oh, what is this digital nomad
Yeah.
lifestyle? How
Well,
do you do it?
Right, because you get to bond over or something. It's almost like like if you're alumni from college or school or something like that,
Yeah.
where you can come like, oh, you're from wherever too. And it's like, oh,
Yeah, you have that
cool.
one
Yeah.
thing in common, and then it's just so
Yeah,
much
yeah.
easier to.
Right.
Yeah.
You can skip into the
Yeah.
kind of the fun stuff and
Or you go to
Right.
like Brno and Traverse and you're like, oh, you went to Bansko too.
Yeah,
Okay.
exactly.
Yeah, you like connect over like the shared locations and experiences
Mhm.
and stuff. Yeah.
Well, I think another thing about community, what's really nice about going to places with lots of community like this, is that you get to get the inside scoop on other places you might
Yeah.
want to
Right.
go.
Yeah.
Like if you're planning, you got something in your mind, you're like, oh, maybe we're gonna go to Vietnam or we're gonna go to Thailand or whatever. Well, your chances are you're gonna meet someone who's either been there or heading there or
Mhm.
whatever. So you can actually get a
Ask
little
them about it. Yeah.
ask
Yeah.
them,
Yeah.
get some questions answered,
Yep.
or
They have a contact for an apartment that you can rent,
Yes.
right? Like there's so
Yeah.
many perks to that. So
Yeah.
They can
It's
tell you
huge.
exactly where to go and
Mhm.
Yep.
how you meet people
Yeah.
there. Yeah.
right, like little shortcuts.
yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
exactly.
The more you grow your network like this, it just like it feels easier and easier to go to these foreign places and
Yeah.
stuff. So
Now, before we continue our interview with Josefine and Dominik, be sure to share this episode with anyone that you know that might be interested in living an abundant life by slow travel or even living abroad.
Yeah, and don't forget to support this podcast by subscribing or following along wherever you may be listening or watching.
And of course, if you're a super fan out there or you're just getting a lot of value out of this, you can always buy us a glass of wine or just subscribe to our podcast over at nomadicabundance.com and get access to a bunch of extended and bonus episodes.
I think the hardest thing with like anything related to this lifestyle, jobs, finding locations, the hardest part is always the beginning. It's like, well, where do I start?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
But as soon as you start, you kind of just go from there and you figure it out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's a big question, right? Like, when should you start? Because I know a lot of people are always
Yeah.
like, they have all these other, I got to get all my ducks in a row
Mhm.
before I, jump in and do whatever.
Right.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I know my thought on it. My thought is just go.
Yeah, just
Mhm.
do it.
Like, just if once you can figure out like a timeline, go do like a short trip.
Yeah.
Mhm.
A short meaning,
Yeah, you
a
can
couple
always try
weeks.
it out.
and then
Mhm.
see how you like that.
Yeah,
know.
especially if you're curious about the lifestyle. Like we've spent quite a bit of time in Madeira, Portugal,
Mhm.
and a lot of people fly to Portugal for a couple of days, a week, 2 weeks, just to like see what it's all about. Some of these people don't even work remotely, but they go there because they're curious. They try to connect with the community, the people, ask a lot of questions, try to figure out, well, which types of job can you do remotely?
Right.
Mhm.
What are my options? Like
Mhm.
which locations can I go to? And they just kind of like go and connect with other nomads to learn about the lifestyle. So I feel like that could be a really good way to ease into it, is to go to a place without having sold everything, quit your job or whatever you need
Yeah,
to do before you
sure.
start. You can go and you can just get a feel for what it's like. And I think a lot of people that at least that we've talked to get hooked on it, and they're like, okay, I go home, I have work to do, I
Yeah,
need
now I
to
have to
Right.
figure out how
Need
how
to
to sell my
get
car, how to
started.
sell my house or whatever. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's
Right.
true.
need to get rid of some
Yeah.
stuff.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting because like for instance, we met at Nomad Fest last year,
Mhm.
Bansko Nomad Fest, and I met quite a few people, didn't we? Like who were in that same like kind of exploratory
Oh,
nomads,
yeah,
Right,
that's right.
you
Yeah,
know?
we did.
who were just like, I
Yeah.
really want to get into this lifestyle. So I
Mhm.
thought we just, they just wanted to come and just see what it's about and talk with people.
Right.
Yeah.
And so I think that's a really good advice.
Yeah. I think we
And-
just jumped into it.
Yeah.
We didn't really question much, but I
Mhm.
think you can easily just, explore a little bit before you take the jump if you're
Mhm.
nervous about it or
But again, we weren't like tied to things or anything. But yeah, I think sometimes, like you said, it's nice meeting people in person who are like living that lifestyle, because you watch this YouTube video and you have no idea anything about the person. You're like, oh, okay.
Exactly.
But when you meet them in person, you're like, oh, okay. Like you can like connect with them, and they're just like me. They're just another human, right? And
Yeah.
then you're like, I
Right.
can also do this and stuff.
Yeah.
So.
And you can learn a lot from like researching online, watching YouTube videos, reading
Mhm.
blogs, listening to podcasts. But you get even more out of it if you actually go to one of these locations where you
Yeah.
can connect with other people and then see the behind the scenes of everything too.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I think even here, it's just like people from like all walks of life. And it's like, oh, you don't have to be like, you have to have a bunch of money to start out. You know, it's people from
Yeah.
everywhere. And it's really interesting.
Yeah.
Well, and everybody's so helpful.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
true. Yeah.
I think, you know,
Mhm.
I think the nomad community that we found
Mhm.
is everybody's like so open
Mhm.
and helpful.
Yeah.
And they'll
Yeah.
just, you know, freely offer advice or that's been huge for
Yeah.
us.
Mhm.
Yeah.
I feel like. So you
I
can,
sorry.
no, I was just gonna say you can just really find a lot of great people.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
To
I even
kinda help
remember
you
last
along.
year, Joe and I, we were like sitting at the lounge and we were talking about our site speed and how it's kind of slow. And then someone we met prior, they were like, oh, I can optimize site speed. So he helped us with our blog, and then Joe knew how to do Google stories and he had no idea. So they kind of just like swapped skills
Yeah.
and stuff. And that was really cool. So
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's kind of like
I feel
skill
like
sharing,
you have-
help each other.
Mhm.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I think that's wonderful.
Yeah. I think one thing that really stands out to me about like this whole digital nomad slow travel lifestyle is that everyone who's here has made a choice in life
Right.
to be here.
Yeah.
You know, everyone's like kind of turned their life around
Mhm.
and made a decision. I'm going to go here. I'm going to be happy. I'm going to live this
Yeah.
lifestyle that I desire. So it's like an active choice to be here and not just
Mhm.
Yeah.
going
That's
with
true.
That's true. Yeah.
flow.
That's a really good point. I hadn't thought of that.
Yeah.
But you do, I mean, you really do kind of have to actively like choose to.
Yeah, you kind of
Yeah.
made
To
that
do
decision
this.
to,
Yeah.
to let everything go and
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
move a broader.
So everyone's here by choice.
Yeah.
Mhm.
It's happy to be here, I think.
I think
Mostly.
Yeah. No, I think
Yeah.
so.
Might as well make the most of it, right?
Yeah.
So my big question
Mhm.
is, how do you guys then work together and then live together full time?
Mhm.
Because this is something that, you know, that Joel and I both work on and
Yeah.
is a challenge
But
for
it's-
us.
yeah, definitely a challenge.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I'm always
Yeah.
curious, you know, to
Mhm.
like how
So I think,
does that work?
say for example, Bansko, the reason we come
Mhm.
here is I think we can have a really good balance with all that because there is a community aspect. Say there's activities that Joe likes to do and there's other activities that I like to do. So then we can work together, but then we're not spending 24 hours a day together.
Yeah.
And especially since we are working together, you know, then it's like you finish work and then it's like, oh, what are you talking about? You know, because all you've done all day is work and the
Yeah.
same thing.
I guess
So-
it's the same for you guys,
Oh,
right?
yeah.
It's like
Right.
you travel together full time and then you work together full time. And it's like, it's just a lot. And it's
Mhm.
It is a
easy
lot.
to focus too much on work because that's also your passion when you,
Yeah.
you know, when
Sure.
you do what we do, right? It's,
Yeah.
We
That's
talk
it.
about it what we eat. We talk about
That's
it
it.
when we walk.
Yeah.
You know.
yeah.
Yeah.
Right before bed is the pillow talk. It's like,
Yeah.
oh my God, respond to that email.
That's the thing where I think, like, say, when you go to a place with community, you know, it has
Yeah.
that opportunity to kind of, you
Yeah.
know, do other things and make other friends and stuff. So we're not always together, even though we love spending time together. It is nice to be able to have other hobbies and things
Yeah.
to do
Yeah.
outside of just working.
Yeah.
Especially this entrepreneurial lifestyle, you can work 24/7 if you want to.
Right.
So
Yeah.
I think that's one thing, and that's why we like going back to Madeira. That's why we like
Okay.
coming here. I'm sure in the future we'll find other places like
Yeah.
this that have.
And in general,
Community.
just going to co-working spaces so you're not just like the two of us at home
Mhm.
in an apartment or
Right.
in a cafe where no one else is working, you know.
Mm.
Mhm.
Really, I think meeting other people and then being in places where there's a lot of different activities.
Mhm.
Right.
I
Because
think
even
helps
today,
us.
like we sat in different rooms, and then, you know, we'll meet up and talk for 10-15 minutes about
Go for lunch together.
an email or something, and then go for lunch, but then we both go and do our own things and stuff.
Yeah.
So kind of having that balance a little
Yeah.
bit.
Yeah, I think those are all really good points.
Yeah, do you guys have any
Yeah.
tips?
No, I
Oh boy. I
No, no, we're still learning how to manage that. I think
we're learning how to manage it, but it's so another reason we're back in Bonsko.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Same reason. It's
Yeah.
because it gives us the opportunity to have that community again
Yeah.
where we can, like, what are you going to do tonight? Like, you know, go have a few beers with the guys,
Right.
you know,
Yeah.
because we have a bunch of other friends that have
Yeah.
come back into town as well. So I can like make time to just like relax for,
Mhm.
Yeah.
you know,
Mhm.
even if it's just a couple hours.
yeah,
And then it gives you a chance, Michelle, a chance to actually, you know, do something with her girlfriends or just have some
or
time
just
to
have
yourself.
some
Right,
time to
just have some
myself.
me time, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I,
Do some yoga or something. Whatever.
and I think like that all stems from say having like a good foundation. So for us, like just having some like extra money in the bank, because like say if we
Yeah.
didn't, then we would be like we'd feel like we'd have to work 10 hours a day, and then we'd be together all the time, and then it's just that stress that builds up on top. So
Yeah.
I feel like
Having
it's
that little cushion has been helpful.
because then
Yeah.
say one day if it's sunny, then we can just work 3 hours a day each. I can go play tennis with a friend. Joe can go for a hike with a friend, right? And then
Yeah.
it's like, yeah, you don't have that stress, and that's how we like that.
Yeah, no,
It's a really good work-life balance here, I think.
Yeah.
absolutely, and that's the key. I think that's the biggest key we've been trying to find, and I think anybody who's interested in slow traveling and is a good question too. Whether you have like a remote job, and you're just gonna live and work in another country for a few months at a time,
Yeah.
or whether you're doing it full time,
Yeah.
like we are, like 100%. Yeah, because you don't get to like, it's not every day you're sitting at the pool.
Exactly. Yeah.
We're working, and then like you said earlier, like the sun's out today. Like, oh man,
Right.
like I don't want to sit here and just
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
I got to get out there and get a little bit of sun today. So you rearrange your schedule a little bit,
Yeah.
and get out there and play your tennis or go for like a 2-hour hike or something
Yeah.
like that, and then you come back and try to
Yeah.
work on stuff. But
And then sometimes you end up sitting a full Saturday and just like working, but then
right,
it's your choice.
exactly.
Right? It's
Yeah.
So I think like co-workings help so much with that now. Like co-workings are popping up everywhere. There's co-workings everywhere.
Yeah.
So I feel like co-workings really help with.
Yeah. And I guess another thing we haven't thought too much about, because we travel a lot around Europe, but also going to destinations that are safe. So that we're also not dependent on each other. Say if he wants to go co-work early in the day or something,
Right.
he can leave me behind, or it's easy to take for granted, but it's actually something that helps a lot too, is being in safe places where we can
not
separate.
really-
Yeah.
No,
That's
it's
super
true.
dependent.
Dependent on the other person. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and I think that's a really good point too, because
Yeah.
I know a lot of people in the States, at least, one of the reasons they want to leave and try living abroad, whether it be for full time or even for stretches of time,
Yeah.
is for that safety aspect. Because it is like everywhere we've been, Albania is like super safe, Bulgaria is super safe, Portugal is super safe, like all these places. You're not concerned about your safety at all.
Exactly. Yeah.
You just go and walk and go do whatever, and you come home at midnight or whatever, and you're not freaking out if someone's not thinking someone's going to follow you or whatever.
Yeah.
And so
One less headache.
Yeah.
Yeah.
and I don't worry about you if you're gonna if we end up going out and
Right.
you decide to go hang out with someone
Right.
else,
Yeah.
we're gonna meet home, and it's
Yeah.
no big deal, especially in a little town like this.
Yeah.
Which is what we love. We like the quiet little towns where it's inexpensive. There's not a lot going on. I mean, there's things to do, but there's not like, it's not like a party
not
town.
overwhelming.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah.
It's not overwhelming.
Yeah. And I think
So-
people look after each other too. I actually remember last year we were at the hub. We went out together, had a couple of drinks, and I was walking home. I think Dom was already home. And you guys were like, "Are you okay walking home by yourself?" And I was like, "Yeah, I am. Thank you for asking."
Exactly. Yeah. There's that, again, back to that community.
Yeah.
Even though I don't know how well we knew each other, it'd just been a few days or been a few weeks, but you still have that sense of community. You feel for the other people,
Right.
and you're able to connect with them that much quicker.
Yeah.
And you're like, oh yeah, well, we can walk that way.
Yeah.
Like it just, and
Yeah.
I don't think anybody thinks anything of it. So
Yeah.
it's another thing I
Yeah.
like.
Yeah.
All right. So finally, let's talk about, and we've gone over a lot of these things, but like, what advice would you offer any other people out there that are either listening to this podcast or watching it on YouTube, and interested in becoming digital nomads, or even just trying the slow travel lifestyle?
I think we kind of mentioned it before, but like you said, Joe, to try it out first, right? Like go to a place and, maybe don't sell everything right away and stuff, but go to a place for a month and with a community and try it out and see.
Yeah. I mean, if you just feel super ready for it,
Yeah.
you can't just sell everything and leave. But if
Yeah.
you're a little nervous and kind of like on the edge and not sure if this lifestyle is for you, try it out first. And again, for us, it was really helpful saving up some money and having that,
Yeah.
because this lifestyle does not have to be expensive,
Right.
right?
Yeah.
Here in Bulgaria, we pay a few €100 a month for rent.
Yeah.
going out is like less than $10,
Yeah.
Mhm.
you know,
Yeah.
for a
And
meal.
I think
Yeah.
that's like the biggest thing I don't understand how people can't comprehend, because say some of my friends are like, how are you doing this? I'm like, you just bought a $50,000 truck. Do you know how expensive my lifestyle
Yeah.
is?
Right? Yeah.
Yeah.
So like people in my hometown will pay double what we pay in a month
Oh,
for
yeah.
just for a room, you
Oh,
know? And
yeah.
it's just like,
Right.
and that's the thing, they don't know, and that's fair because they don't live this lifestyle, right? So
Yeah.
I think if people can try it and see,
Yeah.
like it'll be so eye-opening for
Yeah.
so many people.
And
And
maybe just even knowing that makes it feel even easier because you're like, oh, it's, you know, once you realize it's not that expensive,
Mhm.
it might feel like less of a risk because you take that financial aspect a little bit away from
Right.
it.
Right.
But yeah, having
Yeah.
a financial cushion just in case you end up traveling somewhere expensive, or, you know, you're not working full time yet, you might be freelancing just a few hours a week, but you still are eager to go.
Mhm.
Yeah, I think trying it out for a month, having maybe a little bit of financial savings if you're able to.
Mhm.
And yeah, if not, just go to some cheaper destinations.
Mhm.
from
And
the
I also
beginning.
think like
Yeah.
say like slow matting, I feel like because if you're jumping around, like when we were in Croatia that first year, every 3 days in a different Airbnb, that costs so much
Right.
more
Oh,
money
yeah.
than like
Yeah.
what we're doing for a month in Bulgaria or 2 months in Bulgaria, right? You're
Yep.
Yeah.
paying less for public transport. A lot of the time you'll get monthly discounts in
Yep.
places,
Right,
right?
yeah. 'Cause-
I feel like even now being here, you know, we know what grocery stores have cheaper things. We know there's a Sunday market, which we maybe wouldn't have if we were only here for a few days, right?
Yeah.
So there's so many
Exactly.
different ways like that to
yeah,
you
that's
kind of
true.
find the way locals shop and stuff, and then
Yeah.
you get those little tips and tricks from locals. So
Yeah.
I find it interesting that I think a lot of people, what they spend on a vacation,
Mhm.
like in the States at least,
Yeah.
you know, they
Yeah.
spend $4,000 or $5,000
Mhm.
easily on a vacation
Yeah.
where they're gone for a week,
Yeah.
and they don't realize that you can spend for that same money, you can live a month
Oh, easily.
somewhere.
more, yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
well, I mean, travel somewhere and
Yeah.
live
Yeah.
a month.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
you could fly to Bulgaria and live a month
Yeah.
Yeah.
for two people
Yeah.
on that, live pretty well,
Mhm.
Yeah.
you know. And so, yeah, that's the one thing I noticed too.
Yeah.
Just people, I don't know.
Yeah, and I
just-
think maybe a lot of people just aren't like they don't know that, so it's I think
Yeah.
trying it out and then it'll open their eyes to it, and they'll be like, oh yeah.
Yeah.
And I think you hear a lot of stories where people you meet and it's the same thing, right? They went somewhere for a month and then they're hooked after that.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Go back, figure out how to sell things, and then
Yeah.
and then come back. So
Yeah. And I think one thing that helped us when we first started was also just doing a lot of research.
Mhm.
There's so many different
YouTube and-
YouTubes and blogs out there,
Mhm.
right? And
yeah, we found
Oh,
about
yeah.
You have
Vans
a
go through
ton.
someone's YouTube and
yeah.
would have
Well-
never imagined coming to Bulgaria or
Right.
like small town
Yeah.
Vansko
Oh.
before, right? And we're like, oh, yeah.
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 And now it's like our third time back, and for sure keep coming back. So
Yeah, and obviously you guys have a ton of resources on your YouTube and website. We have on our blog also
Yeah.
a bunch of
Mhm.
like guides to different locations and stuff. So I think just doing that research and reading how much money, which destinations,
Mhm.
all that
Right.
stuff, I think that helps because I think people have a lot of ideas of, you know, they think the lifestyle is like this, they think it costs as much, when in reality it's actually kind of different.
yeah.
It's a lot easier than you think.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. Yeah, I know we've got a couple cost of living guides on our website and some
Mhm.
YouTube videos as well for that. And,
Mm-hmm.
but so again, what was your guys's? I don't think you've mentioned it yet. The name of your website.
Yeah.
Go ahead, yes.
Yeah, so our website is Red White Adventures.
Mhm.
Red and white for the colors of our flags, in case that.
Mhm.
Yeah, we do a ton of guides there about nomad destinations, the different things to do there, outdoor adventures, a lot of hiking.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and reviews of like, say like Bansko, for example. We've written
Co-workings
about the co-working
and
here.
co-livings and stuff. Yeah.
Co-workings, co-livings. So nomad related content.
Very good. A very good resource to check
Oh,
out if
yeah.
you're interested.
Yeah, I used you guys' website when we were planning our trip to Lisbon.
Oh, you
Oh,
were?
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Cool,
And
yeah.
and we go to Madero. I know
Yeah.
for sure I'll be like reading.
We'll be coming with you.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah, there you go.
I'll be reading all throughout your blog, all about that. So yeah, it's a really good resource.
Thank you.
Do you guys have then anything coming up?
We're going to
Any
Canada
really
this
exciting-
summer.
Yeah. Speaking of
Yeah.
expensive destinations.
Yeah.
No, we're going back to see Dom's family and friends. We haven't been in Canada for 2 and 3 years.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
So we're going to go back there. We have a few collaborations with some tourism boards.
Excellent.
Yeah, just
Do a lot of
kinda
hiking and see friends and
catching
stuff.
up with friends. Yeah.
Okay.
So
Yeah.
Oh, that'll
We're
be
excited.
fun.
Yeah.
And
I
that'll be
mean,
pretty
summer's
fun.
always awesome everywhere,
yeah.
but
Yeah.
it'll be nice to be home.
Yeah.
or-
so it's not so much a nomad destination, but
But-
we're sure after that we'll head
Mhm.
somewhere with
Yeah.
more of a community.
Mhm.
So we're just excited for a summer outdoors.
Yeah.
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 That sounds awesome.
That is
Yeah.
awesome. Well, guys, thank you so much for sharing your story with us and with everybody else out there.
Yeah.
Yeah, thanks for
And
having us.
That's
Yeah.
Our like 1 year anniversary. What are your
Yeah.
what are your friend anniversary?
Friend
Yeah.
Friend anniversary, that's right.
That's awesome.
Back
And-
the same time next year.
Yeah.
that's right.
Same place.
Yeah.
I
And we'll
hope
we'll
so.
definitely have like links to everything in the description as well of the article and the description on the YouTube if you're watching on YouTube.
Mhm.
So you can find Dom and Josephine and find out all of their stuff, their websites, and all that good stuff.
Cool. Thanks for having us, guys.
All right.
Yeah, thank you.
We hope you enjoyed our interview with Josephine and Dominik. We really had a great time sitting down and discussing everything from travel blogging to slow travel. And be sure to check out our show notes where we have links to everything we discussed in this episode.
And if you're interested in learning a little bit more about how they actually make money with their blog, as well as how to deal with traveling as a couple and also working at the same time, which is something that we're really familiar with, you can actually check out like an extended version of this podcast over at nomadicabundance.com. Also, don't forget to support the project by sharing this episode, or you can buy us a glass of wine, whatever you want to do. Until next time, happy wandering.
Happy wandering.